Janitor plays harmonica in hiding every day until the building owner hears and can't believe it. Raymond Jenkins adjusted his blue janitor uniform and checked once more that the hallway was empty. It was 5:30 in the morning, the safest time, at Morgan Towers, when even the earliest risers hadn't yet woken up. He pulled out his old harmonica from the inner pocket of his uniform, the only valuable thing he'd inherited from his father. His fingers trembled, not from lack of practice, but from the constant fear of being discovered. For 15 years he'd worked in that luxury building in New York City, and for 15 years he'd hidden his greatest talent. The first note came out soft, almost a metallic whisper that echoed gently off the cold basement walls. Raymond closed his eyes and let the music flow, each note carrying a longing he couldn't even explain. It was in these stolen moments before his shift began that he felt truly alive. What he didn't know was that on this particular morning, Dr. Harold Morgan, the building owner and a man with a dozen other ventures across the city, had arrived early. An international video conference had forced him to be in his 20th floor office before sunrise. Harold went down to the basement to check some archived documents when he heard it. The melody hit him like a punch to the gut, bringing back memories he'd buried decades ago. He stopped in the hallway, his whole body tense, unable to believe what his ears were hearing. That music, that technique, it was impossible. He followed the sound with cautious steps, his heart pounding in his chest. When he turned the corner and saw Raymond, the janitor he barely acknowledged with a nod, transformed by the music he was creating, Harold had to lean against the wall. Raymond opened his eyes, and the harmonica nearly slipped from his hands. The blood drained from his face as he stared at his boss, the man known for firing employees over the smallest infractions. 15 years of flawless work destroyed in a moment of carelessness. "Dr. Harold, I can explain," Raymond stammered, quickly tucking the harmonica into his pocket. "I never play during work hours, I swear. It's just in the morning really early when no one's around." Harold raised his hand, silencing him. His eyes, usually cold and calculating, gleamed with something Raymond couldn't identify. Was it anger, surprise, something deeper? "How long have you been playing?" The businessman's voice came out hoarse, almost a whisper. "Since I was a child, sir. My father taught me." Raymond kept his head down, already picturing the humiliation of being escorted out of the building. "Then why hide it? Why play in secret in the basement like a criminal?" The question caught Raymond off guard. He looked up, meeting his boss's intense gaze. "Sir, with all due respect, you said the day you hired me. Here, you're a janitor. Nothing more, nothing less. I don't want artists, I want professionals. I needed this job. I have a family, bills to pay." Harold closed his eyes. For a moment, as if the janitor's words had struck a nerve. When he opened them again, there was a renewed hardness in his gaze. "Get back to work, Jenkins, and I suggest you keep that instrument at home. I don't want distractions in my building." With that, he turned and walked up the stairs, leaving Raymond with a shattered heart. The janitor looked at the harmonica in his hand, its cold metal reflecting the fluorescent hallway light. With a deep sigh, he tucked it away and returned to his post. The day passed in a fog of sadness for Raymond. Every resident he greeted, every package he accepted, everything seemed colorless, lifeless. Music had been his escape, the one thing that reminded him of who he was beyond the blue uniform. On the 20th floor, Harold Morgan tried to focus on the financial reports, but the morning melody kept echoing in his mind. He stood up, irritated, and went to the window, looking down at the gray city below. The harmonica on his desk, locked, away in a drawer for 23 years, seemed to burn through the wood. He hadn't played it since that fateful day when his father, the great Arthur Morgan, had shattered his dreams with words as sharp as razors. "Music is for bums, Harold. You'll inherit an empire. You won't waste your life blowing into a piece of metal." The words still stung even after all this time. Harold had obeyed, of course. He put away the harmonica, swallowed his dreams, and became the ruthless businessman his father wanted. And now, at 55, he owned an empire and a void no amount of money could fill. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now back to the story. The decision to forbid Raymond from playing had been automatic, a conditioned reflex from years of suppressing his own passion. But something about the doorman's defeated expression unsettled him. It was like looking in a mirror and seeing the ghost of the young man he once was. Meanwhile, on the ground floor, Raymond mechanically carried out his duties. Mrs. Martha, a resident on the 12th floor, noticed his sadness. "Raymond, dear, are you all right? You seem down today." "I'm fine, Mrs. Martha, just a little tired." The 70-year-old woman watched him with that maternal gaze she'd developed after raising 5 children. "You know, Raymond, you remind me of my late husband. He had that same look when he couldn't do what he loved. He was a painter, you know, but he worked his whole life as an accountant to support the family." Raymond forced a smile, but the woman's words struck deep. How many dreams were buried every day in the name of survival? That night in his small apartment on the east side, Raymond explained to his wife, Marissa, what had happened. "Maybe it's for the best," Marissa said, stroking her husband's face. "Now you won't have to wake up so early or hide anymore. We can have a normal life." "Normal?" Raymond repeated the word like it was poison. "Marissa, when I play, I feel alive. Everything else just feels like existing." "I know, my love. But we have Junior to think about. His college." Raymond hugged his wife, knowing she was right. Their 19-year-old son was studying engineering at a private university, a huge sacrifice for their family budget. He couldn't afford to lose his job over some teenage dream. The next day, he arrived at work with his decision made. He would never play in the building again. He'd keep the harmonica at home as Dr. Harold had ordered. He would just be Raymond Jenkins, the exemplary doorman, nothing more. But fate had other plans. Around 10 in the morning, an elderly man entered the lobby. He wore simple but clean clothes and carried a worn leather briefcase. His faded blue eyes scanned the luxurious surroundings with a hint of melancholy. "Good morning, sir. How may I help you?" Raymond asked with professional courtesy. "Good morning. I'd like to speak with Harold Morgan." "Do you have an appointment?" The old man shook his head. "No, but tell him Joseph Sanders is here. He'll see me." Raymond was surprised by the certainty in the man's voice. He called Dr. Harold's secretary, expecting the usual refusal. To his surprise, after a few seconds, she replied, "Send him up. Dr. Harold will see him right away." As he directed the visitor to the elevator, Raymond couldn't help but notice how the man's hands trembled as he held the briefcase. On the 20th floor, Harold Morgan felt his heart race. Joseph Sanders, a name he hadn't heard in over 3 decades. His music teacher, the man who had believed in his talent when he didn't even believe in himself. When Joseph entered his office, time seemed to fold in on itself. The teacher had aged, of course, but his eyes still held that infinite kindness Harold remembered. "Harold? Or should I call you Dr. Morgan now?" "Mr. Sanders." Harold stood, unsure whether to offer a handshake or a hug. He ended up frozen, as awkward as the teenager he once was. "I heard you became a great businessman. Your father must have been proud." The mention of his father made Harold stiffen. He became the cold, controlled executive again. "My father passed away 5 years ago. But yes, he died satisfied with what I became. Please sit. How can I help you?" Joseph sat slowly as if every movement took effort. "I came to ask a favor, Harold. Not for me, but for music." "Sir, I no longer have any connection to—" "I know. Your father made that very clear when he threatened me 30 years ago. Said if I kept encouraging you, he'd ruin my career. And he kept his word." Harold felt his blood run cold. "What? I didn't know." "Of course not. Arthur Morgan was very careful. But I'm not here to talk about the past. I'm sick, Harold. The doctors gave me a few months, maybe a year if I'm lucky." The silence in the office was thick, heavy. Harold didn't know what to say. "I've spent my whole life teaching music to underprivileged children," Joseph continued. "I started a small social project, nothing grand. But now, with my illness, I'll have to close it. The children will have nowhere to learn, nowhere to dream." "You want money?" Harold asked, already reaching for his checkbook. Joseph smiled sadly. "No, Harold. Money can't buy what these children need. They need someone who believes in them, who shows them music can change lives like I believed in you once. What do you want from me? I haven't played in decades, sir. That boy you knew is gone. Is he? Joseph opened his briefcase and pulled out a harmonica. Not just any harmonica, but the one Harold had received from his teacher on his 15th birthday. I kept it all these years. Always knew you'd come back to it one day. Harold stared at the instrument as if it were a snake about to strike. You don't understand. I built my life, my company, on being the opposite of who I was. I can't just... A buzz from the intercom cut him off. His secretary informed him of an issue in the lobby requiring his attention. Annoyed, Harold excused himself and went downstairs. In the lobby, he found an unusual scene. A girl of about 8 was crying uncontrollably while a woman, likely her mother, tried to calm her. Raymond stood nearby, clearly unsure how to help. "What's going on here?" Harold asked in his authoritative voice. The woman turned, her face flushed with embarrassment. "Sorry for the disturbance, sir. My daughter dropped her violin on the stairs and it broke. She has a performance at school today and... So, buy another one," Harold said coldly. "You don't understand," the woman whispered. "We're part of the building's cleaning staff. It took me 2 years to save for that used violin. I can't afford another..." The girl sobbed harder, clutching the broken pieces. Harold was about to tell them to leave when he saw Raymond kneel beside the child. "Hey, little one. What's your name?" Sophie, she managed between sobs. "Sophie, you really love music, don't you?" The girl nodded, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. "You know, when I was your age, I also loved music, but I didn't have money for a fancy instrument like a violin. You know what my father gave me?" Sophie shook her head. Raymond then pulled his harmonica from his pocket, the movement so natural he forgot about the ban. "A harmonica. And you know what he told me? That music isn't in the instrument. It's here." He gently touched the girl's chest, over her heart. "The instrument is just a tool to let the music out." But I don't know how to play the harmonica." Sophie sniffled. "You want me to show you something cool?" Without waiting for an answer, Raymond brought the harmonica to his lips and began to play. Not just any tune. He played the melody of Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, the same one Sophie was supposed to play on the violin. The girl stopped crying, mesmerized. Others in the lobby paused to listen too. The simple song in Raymond's skilled hands took on a moving beauty. Harold watched everything, frozen. Seeing the transformation on the girl's face, from despair to wonder, stirred something deep inside him. He remembered himself at 8 years old, the first time Joseph placed a harmonica in his hands. When Raymond finished, Sophie clapped, her face glowing. "That was beautiful, Uncle. Can you teach me?" "Sophie," her mother scolded, "don't bother the man." "It's no bother at all," Raymond smiled. "But I think it's better..." "Jenkins," Harold's voice cut through the air. "Oh, my office. Now." The smile faded from Raymond's lips. This time there would be no second chance. He had disobeyed a direct order. He handed the harmonica to Sophie. "Keep it, little one, to remind you that the music is always inside us." "But, Uncle, it'll be okay," he said, gently ruffling her hair before following Harold to the elevator. The ride to the 20th floor was tense and silent. Raymond kept his eyes fixed on the floor, already imagining how he'd explain to Marissa that he'd lost his job over a crying child. When they entered the office, Joseph was still there, gazing out the window at the city. "Professor, this is Raymond Jenkins, the building's doorman," Harold said curtly. "Jenkins, Professor Joseph Sanders." Joseph turned, and his eyes lit up when he saw Raymond. "You're the harmonica player. I heard you from the hallway. What a magnificent performance." Raymond blushed, unsure how to respond. Harold got straight to the point. "Jenkins, I gave you a direct order yesterday. No playing in the building. You disobeyed." "Yes, sir. The girl was so sad. I didn't think. I just followed your heart," Joseph finished. "Like every true musician." "Professor, please," Harold snapped. "This is between me and my employee." "No, Harold. This is between you and yourself." Joseph stepped closer to Raymond. "How long have you been playing, son?" "Since I was 6, sir. My father taught me." "Self-taught?" Yes, sir, never had money for lessons. Joseph picked up the harmonica on Harold's desk, the one he'd brought. Can you show me what you can do with this? Raymond glanced at Harold, asking for permission. The businessman waved impatiently. Raymond took the instrument, admiring its superior quality. He started with a simple melody, then gradually increased the complexity, showcasing different techniques and styles. Joseph listened with closed eyes, a smile growing on his face. When Raymond finished, the professor applauded. Extraordinary. Harold, this man has more natural talent than many trained musicians I know. So what? Harold exploded. What does that matter? Talent doesn't pay bills, Professor. Talent doesn't build empires. My father was right. Music is what saved that little girl downstairs, Raymond interrupted, forgetting his place for a moment. I'm sorry, Doctor, but you saw her face. The music made her forget her sadness, gave her hope. If that isn't valuable, then I don't know what is. The silence that followed was heavy. Harold stared at Raymond with an unreadable expression. You don't know who you're talking to, Jenkins. I do, sir. I'm talking to someone who once loved music as much as I do. I don't know why you stopped, but I saw it in your eyes yesterday morning. You weren't angry at me for playing. You were angry because it wasn't you playing. Enough! Harold slammed his hand on the desk. You're fired, Jenkins. Gather your things and... Harold Arthur Morgan, Joseph's voice thundered with an authority his years didn't suggest. Are you really going to stand there ruining the life of a talented man, repeating your father's mistakes? You don't know anything. I know more than you think. I know Arthur destroyed my career because I dared to say his son had a gift. I know he threatened to cut you off if you kept playing music. I know you've spent 30 years punishing yourself for giving in. And now when you have the chance to do things differently, you're going to repeat the cycle. Harold collapsed into his chair, suddenly looking far older than his 55 years. What do you want from me, Professor? I want you to forgive yourself, Harold. And I want you to help this man develop his gift instead of smothering it like they did to you. I can't. I'm not that person anymore. Joseph stepped closer to the desk and placed the harmonica in front of Harold. Prove it. Harold's hands trembled as he picked up the instrument. The metal was cold but familiar. How many nights had he dreamed of this moment? How many times had he woken up with the ghost of melodies never played? He brought the harmonica to his lips. The first note was weak, uncertain, the second a little better. By the third, something inside him broke. Tears began to fall as he played, all the pain, frustration, and regret of 3 decades flowing through the music. Raymond watched, moved. It wasn't just the flawless technique, it was the soul Harold poured into every note. This was the music of a man who had lost everything and was now trying to find his way back. When the melody ended, all 3 men were in tears. I'm sorry, Harold murmured. I shouldn't have forbidden you to play, Raymond. I had no right. You don't have to apologize, Doctor. We all carry our own pain. Joseph seized the moment. Harold, those children I mentioned, they need teachers, people who understand that music can change lives. Professor, I can't just drop everything, and I'm not asking you to, but you have resources, influence, and now you've discovered you have a talented musician working for you. Maybe you two can find a way to help. Harold looked at Raymond, then at the professor. This is a lot to process. I need time to think. Of course, but think fast. Time, as I've learned, is a limited resource. Joseph stood, leaving a card on the desk. My contact information. And Harold, thank you for seeing me, hearing you play again. It was worth the trip. After the professor left, Harold and Raymond sat in silence for several long minutes. Jenkins, Raymond, you still have a job here, but we need to talk about some changes. Sir, first, no more playing in secret. If you're going to play, do it with dignity. Second, I want you to tell me more about your music, your training, your influences. Dr. Harold, I appreciate it, but why the sudden change? Harold turned his chair, gazing out at the city. Do you know what my biggest mistake was, Raymond? It wasn't stopping the music. It was believing I had to choose between music and success. My father convinced me they were opposite paths. But you've been a doorman for 15 years, supporting a family, paying for your son's college, and yet you never let the music die inside you. It wasn't easy, Doctor. I can imagine. That's why I want to propose something. How about we split your time? Mornings you continue as a doorman, afternoons you help me with this project for Professor Joseph. Raymond widened his eyes. Are you serious, sir? I am, but on one condition: you'll have to teach me to play again. 3 decades without practicing, I've lost a lot. It would be an honor, Doctor. Harold smiled, a genuine smile. That transformed his face. And Raymond, bring your harmonica tomorrow. Your own. No need to hide it anymore. Raymond left the office with a heart lighter than he'd felt in years. In the lobby, he found Sophie and her mother still waiting. Uncle, the girl ran to him. You didn't get fired, did you? No, sweetheart, everything's fine. The cleaning lady said Dr. Harold is really mean, that he doesn't like music or anything beautiful. Raymond knelt in front of the girl. You know, Sophie, sometimes people seem mean because they're sad inside. Dr. Harold does like music. He'd just forgotten. How does someone forget they like music? The same way we sometimes forget to be happy. But you know what's good? Music always helps us remember. He handed his personal harmonica to the girl. But Uncle, you already gave me one. This one's special. It was my father's. Take good care of it, okay? And maybe one day you can teach me to play the violin. Sophie hugged the harmonica like a treasure, and her mother had tears in her eyes. Thank you, Mr. Raymond. How can I repay you? Just let her make music, Mom. Music heals the soul. That night, Raymond came home later than usual. Marissa was surprised to see him without the heaviness he'd carried lately. What happened? You seem different. Marissa, sit down. I have something amazing to tell you. He recounted everything from Professor Joseph's visit to Harold's proposal. Marissa listened in awe. So you'll get to play professionally and you'll keep your job? That's right. Dr. Harold wants to start a social project teaching underprivileged kids. He said he'll adjust my hours, maybe even raise my pay for the extra work. Raymond, it's a miracle. It's music, Marissa. Music opens doors we didn't even know existed. Junior, who'd arrived from college during the conversation, hugged his father. Dad, I always knew you were special. Now the world will too. Easy, son. It's just a start. I don't even know if I'll be a good teacher. You taught me to never give up on my dreams, Junior said emotionally. That already makes you the best teacher I know. The next day, Raymond arrived at work with his harmonica in his pocket, but this time not to hide it. He greeted every resident with a smile brighter than usual. Around 10, Harold came down himself. Good morning, Raymond. Ready for our first lesson? Lesson? Now, Doctor. Why not? My next meeting isn't until noon. They went up to an empty conference room on the 15th floor. Harold had brought the harmonica Joseph left. Where do we start? He asked, looking like the insecure teenager from decades ago. From the beginning, Doctor. Breathing. The harmonica is an extension of your body. You need to learn to breathe with it again. For the next 40 minutes, Raymond guided Harold through basic exercises. It was strange seeing the powerful businessman struggle with simple notes, but there was a determination in his eyes Raymond recognized, the hunger of someone rediscovering a lost part of themselves. I'm terrible, Harold said, frustrated, after messing up a sequence for the 5th time. You're rediscovering. It's like riding a bike after a long time. The body remembers. It just needs patience. Patience, Harold chuckled dryly. I built an empire by being impatient, Raymond. But you lost music by being impatient with yourself, Doctor. Maybe it's time to try a different path. Harold studied him for a long moment. You're wiser than you look, you know. Music teaches humility, Doctor. It doesn't care if you're rich or poor, powerful or not. To music, we're all equal. The businessman resumed practicing, this time less hurried. When he finally played the sequence correctly, his face lit up like a child's. I did it. Did you hear that, Raymond? I did it. You sure did, Doctor. That's just the first step. A knock interrupted the lesson. Harold's secretary entered timidly. "Excuse me, Dr. Harold, but Mr. Anthony Pierce is here for your meeting." Anthony Pierce. Raymond knew the name, one of the city's most influential businessmen, infamous for his cold demeanor. "Have him wait," Harold said, startling everyone. "But sir, I said wait. I'm in an important meeting." The secretary left, bewildered. Raymond stood. "Doctor, I can go. I don't want to interfere with your business." "Sit down, Raymond. Anthony Pierce can wait 10 minutes. I've waited 30 years for this." They continued a few more minutes, until Harold decided it was time to face the corporate world again. But something had shifted. The businessman seemed lighter, more human. "Same time tomorrow?" he asked Raymond. "Of course, doctor, and practice the breathing exercises I taught you." When Raymond returned to the lobby, he found a small commotion. Sophie was there with 3 other children, all holding makeshift instruments, cans, spoons, even an overturned bucket. "Uncle Raymond!" Sophie ran to him. "These are my school friends. I told them you'd teach music and they wanted to come." "Sophie, I haven't started the project yet. I don't have permission." "Problem solved," Harold's voice came over the intercom. "Raymond, use the ground floor event room. It's empty anyway." "Doctor, are you sure?" "Absolutely. And tell the children we'll have real instruments next week." The kids cheered. Raymond led them to the room, improvising a first lesson with what they had. He taught basic rhythms, showing how any object could become an instrument in the right hands. Mrs. Martha, passing through the lobby, heard the music and stepped in. "My goodness, Raymond, you're teaching." "We're starting a project, Mrs. Martha." "How wonderful. You know, I have an old piano at home, my mother's. It's out of tune, but if it helps, any help is welcome, ma'am." Soon, other residents drifted in, drawn by the sounds. Some offered help. Others just watched, smiling. It was as if the whole building was waking from a long sleep, but not everything was smooth. At the next building meeting, Dr. Anthony Pierce raised an objection. "Harold, I heard your letting. The Doorman used the building's facilities for lessons. That's against policy." "It's a community project, Anthony. I see no issue." "Community project?" Anthony sneered. "Since when do you care about such things? And music, no less? Turn this place into some noisy slum." Several residents spoke against him, but some agreed. The debate grew heated. "Music isn't noise," Harold said evenly, "and giving underprivileged children music lessons doesn't create slums. It changes lives." "Ha, now you're a poet?" Anthony mocked. "What's gotten into you, Harold? Midlife crisis? Trying to play the saint now?" "What happened, Anthony, is that I realized I spent 30 years being a fool, just like you. Cold, calculating, measuring the value of everything by money. Do you know what I discovered? That all the money in the world can't buy the joy I saw on those children's faces yesterday. Spare me the sentimentality. This is a luxury building, not a community center. If you want to do charity, do it somewhere else." "This building, there's mine, Anthony. Or have you forgotten? It's yours, but we pay high association fees precisely to avoid this kind of inconvenience." Raymond, who was watching the meeting from the doorway, felt his heart sink. Once again, his dreams were being crushed by prejudice and greed. That's when Mrs. Martha stood up. "May I speak? I've lived here for 20 years. I've watched this building turn into a cold place where neighbors barely greet each other. Yesterday, for the first time in years, I saw genuine smiles, children learning something beautiful. If that's an inconvenience for you, Anthony, maybe the problem isn't the music." Other residents began voicing their support for the project. Soon it became clear Anthony was in the minority. "You'll regret this," he said, standing up. "When this place turns into a mess, don't say I didn't warn you." After he left, Harold addressed the group. "The project continues. But I want to make one thing clear. There will be set schedules and rules. Raymond will be the coordinator with my full support. Does anyone else object?" Silence. Even those who had doubts seemed willing to give it a chance. That afternoon, Raymond received a call that would change everything. It was Joseph. "Raymond, I need to speak with you and Harold. It's urgent." Half an hour later, the 3 of them were in the office. Joseph looked frailer than he had days before. "The building where I teach, the owner decided to sell. Have a month to leave. There are 40 children, Raymond. 40 children who won't have a place to learn music. We can bring them here, Raymond suggested. There are too many, and they come from far away. We'd need transportation, more space, instruments. Harold drummed his fingers on the table, thoughtful. Professor, how much would it cost to keep your project running for a year? Rent, instruments, transportation, everything. Joseph did some quick calculations. About $100,000, maybe more. Consider it done. Harold, I can't accept. It's not charity, Professor. It's an investment. An investment in what I should have invested in 30 years ago, dreams. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. Joseph's eyes filled with tears. Harold, you don't know what this means. Yes, I do, but there's one condition. Raymond will be the general coordinator. You'll train him, pass on your knowledge, and I want to be part of it too, as a student and when I'm ready as a volunteer teacher. Raymond was speechless. In just a few days, his life had turned completely around. Dr. Harold, I don't know if I'm ready for so much responsibility. No one ever is, Raymond. But you have something that can't be taught. A genuine passion for music and for people. The rest you'll learn. In the following days, the news spread. The project got a name. Notes of Hope. Harold used his connections to secure instrument. Donations, partner companies offered transportation, and even the city government expressed interest in supporting it. But Anthony Pierce hadn't given up. A week later, Raymond arrived at work to find his locker broken into. His things were tossed around and there was an anonymous note. A doorman is meant to serve, not to teach. Know your place. He didn't tell anyone. He didn't want to worry Harold or cause more trouble. But Marissa noticed his unease at home. What's wrong, love? You've been tense. It's nothing, just some people in the building aren't happy with the changes. Raymond, you're doing something beautiful. Don't let anyone's jealousy stop you. I won't. It's just, I spent so much time hiding, Marissa. Now that I can be myself, there are people trying to push me back into the shadows. Then shine even brighter. Make so much noise with your music that they can't ignore you. The next day, during his lesson with Harold, Raymond casually mentioned the incident. What? Harold turned pale. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I didn't want to make a fuss, Doctor. You're already helping me so much. Raymond, you're not just an employee anymore. You're my partner in this project, my teacher, my friend. No one has the right to threaten you. Harold immediately increased security and installed extra cameras. But the worst was yet to come. One Thursday afternoon, the first children from Joseph's project arrived to see the new space. They were boys and girls of various ages, their eyes shining with excitement. Raymond had prepared a special welcome. With Sophie and her friends' help, he decorated the room with colorful musical notes. Mrs. Martha brought the promised piano, now tuned. Other residents donated guitars, flutes, even a drum set. Welcome to Notes of Hope, Raymond announced. Here, each of you will discover the music inside yourselves. The children explored the instruments with awe. For many, it was the first time they'd touched anything beyond scraps. Harold showed up in the middle of the lesson, still in his suit but with a harmonica in his pocket. Doctor, Raymond smiled. Kids, this is Dr. Harold. He's learning harmonica just like you. Hi, mister. A boy about 10 years old approached. Is it true you're rich? Peter, Joseph scolded. It's all right. Harold knelt to be at the boy's level. I am rich in money, yes, but you know what? I spent a long time being poor in music. And that's the worst kind of poverty there is. What do you mean? Imagine having all the toys in the world but not being able to play. That's how I felt. Now I'm learning to play again, only with music. The children seemed to understand. Soon, Harold was sitting on the floor with them, learning basic rhythms from Raymond, laughing at his own mistakes. Just another student. It was then that Anthony Pierce walked into the room with 3 other residents. So it's true, he said with disdain. Harold Morgan, one of the most powerful men in the city, sitting on the floor with slum kids. Silence fell instantly. The children shrank back, recognizing the tone of someone who saw them as less than nothing. "Anthony," Harold stood. "Slowly, you're embarrassing the children. They're the embarrassment. Look at this. You turned a luxury building into a place where children learn art." Raymond finished, stepping protectively in front of the kids. "Into a space where dreams are nurtured. You," Anthony pointed at Raymond, "you're the one to blame for all this." Filled Harold's head with this music nonsense. "He was perfectly fine before you showed up with your ridiculous little harmonica." "Enough," Harold snapped. "Anthony, you're banned from this space, and if you keep causing trouble, you'll have to find somewhere else to live. You can't kick me out. I have rights, and so do these children. The right to learn without being humiliated by people like you." Anthony stormed out, furious, promising this wasn't over. The children were visibly shaken. "Hey, everyone!" Raymond tried to cheer them up. "You know what we do when someone tries to ruin our music." "What?" Sophie asked. "We play louder." He grabbed his harmonica and started a lively tune. Soon, Harold joined in, then Joseph at the piano. The children, hesitant at first, began to play along with whatever instruments they could find. The sound that came out wasn't perfect, it was better, it was true. It was the sound of people refusing to let the bitterness of others dim their light. But Anthony hadn't finished. The next day, Harold received a summons. Anthony had filed a lawsuit alleging noise disturbance, improper use of common space, and even questioning Harold's mental health due to sudden behavioral changes. "He can't do this." Raymond fumed when he found out. "He can, and he did," Harold sighed. "I've known Anthony for years. He doesn't accept losing. He'll use every possible resource to shut this project down. What do? We fight. But Raymond, this could get ugly. Anthony has connections, influence. He could make your life hell." "Doctor, I spent 15 years playing in hiding in basements. If that didn't break me, Anthony Pierce won't either." Harold smiled with admiration. "You're stronger than you look, my friend. Music strengthens." "Us, Doctor, you're just discovering that." The legal battle began. Anthony hired the best lawyers, campaigned among the residents, spread rumors that the building was losing value because of the project. Some families started wavering in their support. A teenager, the son of one resident, was overheard saying he was ashamed to live in a place full of poor people. Raymond felt the weight of the situation. At home, he could barely sleep. "Maybe I should stop," he told Marissa one night. "I'm causing too much trouble for everyone." "Raymond Jenkins, look at me." Marissa held her husband's face. "Do you think Martin Luther King gave up because he upset racists? That Chiquinha Gonzaga stopped composing because women weren't supposed to be musicians? This is different, Marissa. Is it? You're giving kids a chance to learn music when they'd never have one otherwise. You're showing that art has no social class. If that's not important, what is?" Junior walked into his parents' room. "Dad, there's something I need to show you." He opened his laptop and pulled up a Facebook page, Support the Notes of Hope Project. It had thousands of likes and hundreds of testimonials. "Junior, what is this?" "I made it a few days ago. Look at the comments, Dad. People from all over the country are supporting you. Parents thanking you because projects like this saved their kids from the streets. Professional musicians saying, they started this way." Raymond read, moved. There was even a testimonial from a violinist in the National Symphony Orchestra. "I learned music in a social project. Today, I play in the greatest theaters in the country. Initiatives like Mr. Raymond's change lives. They changed mine. See, Dad? You're not alone." The next day, something unexpected happened. A TV crew showed up at the building, wanting to do a story on the project. "How did they find out?" Harold asked. The reporter smiled. "Social media is blowing up with this story. A doorman who played in secret, and a businessman who rediscovered music while helping underprivileged kids. It's inspiring." Anthony was furious when he saw the cameras. "This is a marketing stunt. Harold is using these kids to promote himself." But his voice was drowned out by the emotional testimonials from the kids, grateful parents, and residents who supported the project. Sophie especially stole the show. "Uncle Raymond taught me that music is in the heart. Before I thought I was too poor to learn the violin. Now I know I can be anything I want." The story aired that night. Within minutes, the building's phone wouldn't stop ringing. People wanted to help, donate instruments, volunteer to teach. But the media victory only made Anthony more determined. He started following Raymond, looking for any mistake to use against him. Then one Saturday morning, everything nearly fell apart. Raymond had taken some of the project's kids to perform in the square. It was part of Joseph's strategy to showcase the students' progress in public, to rally more support. Everything was going well until Anthony showed up with a group of private security guards. "This man has no authorization to be with these children," he shouted. "Where are the parents? This is kidnapping." Panic set in. Some people started filming, others called the police. The frightened children clung to Raymond. "Everyone, calm. Down!" Raymond tried to regain control. "The parents authorized it. I have everything documented." "Documents can be forged," Anthony insisted. "This man is a doorman who thinks he's a teacher. Who guarantees these children's safety?" The SWAT police arrived and the chaos escalated. Raymond had to show all the authorizations, call the parents, prove everything was legal. The children cried, the performance was cancelled. By the time everything was finally clarified, the damage was done. Some frightened parents pulled their kids from the program. The trust Raymond had built was shaken. That night he came home devastated. "He did it, Marissa. Anthony did it. The parents don't trust me anymore." "This will pass, love. And if it doesn't? What if I really am being irresponsible? I'm just a doorman, like he said. Who am I to think I can teach these kids?" It was Junior who answered. "You're the man who taught me never to give up, who worked 15 years at a job that belittled him but never stopped dreaming, who woke up before dawn to play in secret because the music was bigger than the fear. That's who you are, Dad." On Sunday, Harold called an emergency meeting with everyone involved in the project. Joseph was there, some parents, the children, who stayed, even Mrs. Martha and other supportive residents. "Let's face reality," Harold began. "Anthony won't stop. He has money, influence and determination. The question is it worth continuing to fight?" A heavy silence fell over the group. Then little Peter, the boy who had once asked if Harold was rich, raised his hand. "Can I speak, Uncle?" "Of course, Peter." "My mum cleans rich people's houses. Every time she comes home, she's sad because they treat her badly. But since I started coming here, she comes home and finds me playing the flute. You know what she told me yesterday? That for the first time in years, she has hope I'll have a life different from hers. Isn't that worth it?" Tears filled everyone's eyes. Harold stood up. "You're right, Peter. It's worth every lawsuit, every lie, every attack. Raymond, are you in?" "Till the end, Doctor." "Then let's change our strategy. No more playing defense." In the following days, Harold used all his business influence. He invited journalists to observe the classes, brought in famous musicians to publicly support them, organized a benefit concert with all proceeds going to the project. Raymond, for his part, doubled his efforts. He personally visited every family that had withdrawn, explained the situation, and rebuilt trust. His sincerity and dedication moved the parents. "Mr. Raymond," one mother said, "my son hasn't been the same since he started these lessons. He smiles more, he's more confident. I won't let a bitter man destroy that." One by one, the children returned, and they brought more friends. The benefit concert was a success. Lincoln Center was packed with performances by the children alternating with professional musicians. The most emotional moment came when Harold took the stage. "Good evening. Many of you know me as a businessman. Tonight I want to introduce myself as a student of the Notes of Hope project. And as a student, I want to play for you." He picked up the harmonica and played. It wasn't a perfect performance, but it was honest, full of feeling. When he finished, the theater erupted in applause. 30 years ago, I let music die inside me," Harold continued. "A man showed me it's never too late to be reborn. That man is Raymond Jenkins, whom many knew only as a doorman. Today, I know him as a teacher, a musician, and above all, a friend. Raymond, can you come up here?" Raymond stepped onto the stage, trembling. "Now together we'll show what music can do." The two played a duet, two harmonicas creating a harmony that moved the audience. When they finished, the crowd rose to their feet in applause. Anthony, watching from a corner, stormed out in fury, but his power was waning. Public support for the project was overwhelming. The following week, he made one last desperate move. He managed to schedule a general meeting of the building's board to vote on the project's continuation. "It's simple," he argued. "Either the project goes, or I sue the building for misuse of space. I'll bankrupt you." It was a real threat. Many residents, even those who supported the project, feared the financial consequences. The vote was set for Saturday. Raymond barely slept all week. On the day of the meeting, he arrived early and found the children from the project waiting in the lobby. "What are you all doing here?" he asked, surprised. "We came to support you, Uncle," Sophie said. "If they're deciding about us, we want to be here." As residents began arriving for the vote, they found the children playing softly in the lobby. It wasn't an aggressive protest, just gentle music full of hope. Many stopped to listen. Some had tears in their eyes. The meeting began tensely. Anthony presented his legal, financial, and practical arguments. He was convincing and intimidating. When it was Harold's turn to speak, he simply said, "Let me tell you a story. 30 years ago, a young man gave up music out of fear. Fear of disappointing his father, of losing his inheritance, of not being accepted. That young man became wealthy, powerful, and deeply unhappy. You're about to make these children live that same story. The question is, will we choose fear or hope?" Raymond then spoke up. "I know I'm just a doorman to many here, but I'm also a man who loves music and has discovered I can make a difference. These children, they have nothing but this project. If you take it from them, what message are we sending? That art is only for the rich? That the poor don't deserve to dream?" It was then that Joseph, growing weaker by the day, struggled to his feet. "I may not be here much longer, but before I go, I want to see this project continue. Please don't take away these children's future." The voting began. One by one, residents cast their ballots. Anthony looked confident. As the counting started, the room fell silent. The first few votes were against the project. Raymond's heart sank, but then the tide turned. Vote after vote came in favor. Residents who had never spoken up before voted to keep the project. In the end, the victory was overwhelming, 75% in favor of continuing. Anthony left without a word. The children erupted in celebration. "We did it," Sophie hugged Raymond. "You did it, Uncle." "We did it," he corrected. "All of us." At that moment, Joseph collapsed. He was rushed to the hospital. The doctors were clear. He had only days, maybe hours left. In the hospital room, Joseph held Harold's and Raymond's hands. "I promised myself I wouldn't die until I saw music reborn in you, Harold. Promise kept." "Professor, don't talk like that. It's all right. I lived for music, and I'll die happy knowing it lives on." "Raymond, you have a special gift. It's not just playing, it's touching people. Keep doing that." "I will, Professor, I promise." "And Harold, your father was wrong. You never had to choose between success and music. Look at you now. You have both." Joseph closed his eyes, a serene smile on his face. The music he loved so much seemed to echo in the silence of the room. The funeral was a celebration of life. Hundreds of former students came to play in his honor. Raymond and Harold played the teacher's favorite song together. After the funeral, Harold made a decision. "Raymond, I want to turn Notes of Hope into a formal institution, with its own headquarters, paid teachers, scholarships, and I want you to be the artistic director. Doctor, I don't have the qualifications for that. You have something better, a calling. The bureaucratic part we can handle. What you can't learn is genuine love for music and for people. That you have in abundance." Raymond accepted, moved. Marissa cried with joy when she heard. Junior joked that his father had gone from the basement straight to the boardroom. 6 months later, the new headquarters of the Notes of Hope Institute was inaugurated, an entire building dedicated to teaching music to underprivileged children. The main auditorium was named after Joseph Sanders. At the opening, hundreds of people attended. The children from the original project gave a touching performance. Sophie, now playing a real violin, performed a beautiful solo. But the most memorable moment was when Raymond took the stage. A year ago, I was playing secretly in a building's basement. Today, we're here. This was only possible because one man had the courage to listen to me and rediscover his own music. Harold Morgan isn't just my boss or partner. He's my brother in music. Harold, come here. The two friends played together once more. But now they were no longer boss and employee. They were two men who had found in music the bridge to overcome social barriers, old fears, and prejudices. You know, Harold said into the microphone after the song, I spent 30 years building towers, but only when I helped build this project did I understand what it means to create something truly important. Thank you, Raymond, for teaching me to hear music again, and thank you for showing me that the best melodies come from the most unexpected places. The audience gave a standing ovation. Among the crowd, one face stood out, Anthony Pierce. He approached the stage. May I speak? The silence was tense. Raymond and Harold exchanged glances. I came to apologize, Anthony said, his voice trembling, and to confess something. 40 years ago, I also dreamed of being a musician, a pianist, but my father... Well, the story is similar to yours, Harold, except I never had the courage to go back. Seeing you two, seeing these children, made me realize I turned my frustration into bitterness. I tried to destroy in you what I couldn't reclaim in myself. It's never too late, Anthony, Raymond said gently. Do you think a bitter old man like me could learn piano here? Everyone is welcome at Notes of Hope, Harold replied. Music doesn't judge, it only embraces. Tears filled Anthony's eyes as he shook their hands. A year later, the Institute was serving 300 children. Raymond had become a local celebrity, invited to speak about social inclusion through art, but he still arrived early to work, no longer to play in secret, but to prepare the day's lessons. Harold often joined him on those mornings, the two practicing together. You know, Raymond, Harold said one such morning, my father must be rolling in his grave seeing what I've become. And what have you become, Doctor? Happy, Raymond. I've become happy. And that, my friend, is priceless. And the Institute grew, the children flourished, the music spread. But for Raymond, the greatest reward was waking up every morning to do what he loved, without fear, without shame. One special afternoon, Sophie, now 10 years old, performed with the State Youth Orchestra. Raymond watched from the audience, his heart bursting with pride. That little girl who cried over a broken violin, Marissa whispered beside him. Look at her now. Music transforms, Marissa. I've always believed that. After the performance, Sophie ran to hug him. Uncle Raymond, I did it. I played with the orchestra. You sure did, little one. I'm so proud of you. You know, Uncle, when I grow up, I want to be like you. A musician? No, someone who helps others find their music. Raymond hugged. The girl moved. The cycle continued. That night at home, he picked up his father's old harmonica. The metal was worn from use, marked by time, but it still produced the purest notes when played with love. Dad, he murmured to the instrument, I did it. Not the way we imagined, but I did it. Music won. Marissa approached and embraced her husband. You know what amazes me most about this whole story? What? That it all started because you couldn't stop playing. Even in hiding, even afraid, the music in you was stronger. That's just how music is, Marissa. It always finds a way. Out, sometimes through the most unlikely places, like a doorman in the basement of a luxury building. They laughed, holding each other. Outside, the city slept. But somewhere, Raymond knew, a child was discovering music for the first time. And that made everything worth it. 5 years passed. The Notes of Hope Institute had become a national model for music education in underserved communities. But despite growing success, Raymond never lost his humility. He still lived in the same modest apartment, took the same bus. The only difference was that now he carried the harmonica in his front pocket, proudly visible to all. Harold, meanwhile, had found balance between his business and music. He'd created a corporate foundation that funded cultural projects across the city. But his greatest joy was still sitting with Raymond on Tuesday and Thursday mornings to practice. It was on one of those mornings that they received an unexpected visitor. An elegant woman in her 60s entered the institute. "I'm looking for Raymond Jenkins and Harold Morgan." "That's us," Raymond replied. "How can we help?" "My name is Isabella Pierce. I'm Anthony Pierce's sister." The two men exchanged glances. Anthony had become one of the institute's most dedicated supporters, but had never mentioned a sister. "I came from Washington, D.C. specifically to meet you," she continued. "Anthony told me the whole story, how you helped him rediscover music, the joy of living." "He helped himself," Harold said. "We just opened the door. Be modest if you must, but the reason for my visit is different. I'm the Director of Cultural Projects for the Department of Education. We want to replicate your model in other cities." Raymond's heart raced. "You're saying that—" "I'm saying the federal government wants to turn Notes of Hope into public policy. Start with 10 pilot cities, then expand. But we need you to train the coordinators." It was a dream neither Raymond nor Harold had dared to imagine, bringing music to children across the country. "It's a huge responsibility," Raymond said hesitantly. "It's a huge opportunity," Isabella corrected. "Think of how many children like Sophie could discover their talents." That night, Raymond talked at length with Marissa and Junior, now an engineering graduate working in the Institute's administration. "Dad, this is your chance to spread music across the whole United States. But it means traveling a lot, being away from home." "Raymond," Marissa took his hands, "you spent 15 years playing in secret, then 5 years changing lives here in New York City. Now you have the chance to do it nationwide. How can you say no? What about you? We'll be here, love, supporting, cheering, waiting for you to come back with new stories." The decision was made. Raymond and Harold accepted the challenge. The first pilot project was in a small town in rural Pennsylvania. Raymond arrived on a cold morning, carrying only a backpack and his harmonica. The local mayor was skeptical. "Music for poor children. What they need are jobs, not flutes." "Mayor, with all due respect, they need hope. Hand music provides that. Hope doesn't fill bellies, but it fills the soul. And an empty soul builds no future." Raymond started small. He gathered a few children in the square and began to play. As always, the music drew curious onlookers. Within a week, 30 children wanted to learn. The biggest challenge was finding someone local to continue the work. That's when he met Teresa, a retired teacher who kept a dusty guitar in her closet. "It's been 20 years since I last played," she said. "Music has its own memory. It'll remember you." Raymond spent 2 weeks training Teresa and other volunteers. He taught them not just musical techniques, but the philosophy of the project. Music as a tool for transformation, not performance. When he left for the next town, he left behind the seed of a new institute. Teresa cried as they said goodbye. "You gave me back something I didn't even know I'd lost." "It wasn't me. It was the music. It was always there, waiting." Town after town, the story repeated with variations. In each place, Raymond faced resistance and found allies, skeptics and dreamers. But music always opened doors. Harold joined him when he could, sharing business experience and helping structure the projects administratively. "You know what I've discovered, Raymond?" he said one night after a particularly difficult day in a southern town. "Teaching music is more complicated than running businesses." "Why?" "Because businesses deal with numbers, contracts, predictability. Music deals with souls, and every soul is its own universe." Within 6 months, all 10 pilot projects were running. The success was such that the Department of Education approved expansion to 20 more towns. But success came at a cost. Raymond missed home Marissa, the quiet mornings at the original institute. During a trip to Seattle, he got a call that made him rethink everything. "Dad?" It was Junior, his voice tense. "Mum's in the hospital." Raymond took the first flight back. Marissa had suffered a mild heart attack. She was out of danger, but the scare was real. "I'm sorry," she said when he entered the room. "I ruined your work." "You could never ruin anything, my love. I'm the one who should apologize. I was so focused on spreading music across the country that I forgot the most important music, our life together." "Don't say that. I'm proud of you. I just missed you." Raymond made a decision. He spoke with Harold and Isabella. He would continue supporting the national project, but in a different way. He'd create a training center in New York City where coordinators from across the country could come to learn. That way, he could stay close to his family while multiplying knowledge. Wise decision, Harold agreed. I've learned that success without the people we love nearby is just noise. The Joseph Sanders Training Center opened a year later, a space where musicians, educators, and volunteers from all over the United States came to learn not just musical techniques, but the art of transforming lives through music. Raymond developed his own methodology based on his experiences. He called it basement pedagogy, a light-hearted nod to his years of playing in secret. True music, he taught. The new coordinators is born in unlikely places. In the basements of life, our mission is to bring it into the light. One day during a lesson, a young coordinator from Alaska asked a question that caught him off guard. "Professor Raymond, have you ever thought about recording an album? Your compositions are beautiful." Raymond laughed. "Son, I play to touch. Heart's not to sell CDs." "But think about it," the young man insisted. "How many people could be inspired by hearing your music, your story?" The idea kept nagging at Raymond. He talked to Marissa that night. "Why not?" she said. "You've always been a musician. Just because you're a teacher and director now doesn't mean you've stopped being an artist." When Harold found out, he got excited. "Let's do it together, a harmonica album telling our story through music." "Doctor, you're still learning." "So what? The album wouldn't be about technical perfection. It'd be about overcoming, friendship, rebirth." The album project started humbly. They recorded on weekends in the Institute's makeshift studio. Sophie, now 15 and a talented violinist, played on a few tracks. Anthony, who had become a dedicated pianist despite his age, also contributed. But word got out. An independent label known for social projects offered to professionalize the production. "We don't want to change a thing," the producer said. "The beauty lies in its authenticity. We just want more people to hear it." The album Basement Notes was released at an emotional evening at the Institute. It wasn't a typical commercial launch. It was a celebration of all the lives transformed by music. The tracks told the story without words: the loneliness of mornings in the basement, the unlikely meeting, the struggles faced, the small victories, the great transformation. To everyone's surprise, the album went viral. Not because of marketing, but because it touched something universal. The search for one's voice in a world that often silences us. Interviews, features, and invitations multiplied, but Raymond kept his feet on the ground. "Fame at 58, he joked. "I'd rather have the kids' recognition when they master a new song." The album's success brought more visibility and resources to the project. Business people who had never paid attention to social initiatives began contributing. Famous musicians offered free workshops, but it also brought challenges. Some accused Raymond of selling out, of abandoning the project's original purity. It was Mrs. Martha, now 85, and still a devoted attendee of the Institute's concerts, who put things in perspective. "Nonsense. Raymond is the same humble man I've always known. Only now, instead of playing for the walls in secret, he plays for the world to hear. And the world needs to hear it." 5 years after the album's release, the Notes of Hope model was running. In 200 US cities, thousands of children had gone through the programs. Some pursued music careers, others didn't, but all carried music in their hearts. Raymond, now 63, began thinking about succession. Junior had proven to be an excellent administrator, combining his engineering degree with his father's musical sensitivity. "It's time for you to take on more responsibility," Raymond told his son in a planning meeting. "Dad, I'll never be able to do what you do. And you don't have to. You'll do it your way. Music reinvents itself with each generation." Then came news that moved everyone. Sophie had won first place in the National Symphony Orchestra's audition. At just 20, she would be the youngest violinist in the institution's history. "Uncle Raymond," she said tearfully over the phone, "I did it, and it's all thanks to you. Thanks to your talent and dedication, Sophie. No, thanks to you stopping that day to show me the music inside me. I want you and Dr. Harold at my debut." Sophie's debut performance was at Lincoln Center, the Haichu, same place where years earlier, the project had held its first major benefit concert. Raymond and Harold watched from the front row, two men with graying hair bound by a friendship forged in music. "Feels like just yesterday," Harold whispered. "You in the basement, me pretending to be angry." "You really were angry," Raymond chuckled softly. "I was angry at myself. You just held up the mirror for me." When Sophie stepped onto the stage, elegant in her concert dress, Raymond didn't see the talented young woman. He saw the little 8-year-old girl crying over a broken violin. The music began, and it was sublime. Every note carried not just flawless technique, but a story of perseverance, of dreams nurtured when all seemed impossible. At the end, when the theater erupted in applause, Sophie did something unexpected. She took the microphone. "Before we continue, I want to thank two people, Raymond Jenkins and Harold Morgan. 12 years ago, they showed me that music knows no social class, that a poor girl could dream of playing on grand stages. Today, I'm here because of them. Uncle Raymond, Dr. Harold, would you come up here?" Flustered, the two men stepped onto the stage. "This next piece," Sophie continued, "I'd like to play with you. I brought your harmonicas." She handed them the instruments. The understanding conductor made room. And there, on the Lincoln Center stage, 3 generations united by music played together. Sophie on violin, Raymond and Harold on harmonicas. The chosen song? "Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star," the same tune Raymond had played to calm the little girl 12 years earlier, but now arranged by Sophie into a version blending simplicity and sophistication, tradition and innovation. When the final note faded, not a single dry eye remained in the audience. Backstage after the concert, Sophie hugged her two mentors. "Know what I'm doing with my first orchestra paycheck?" "What?" Raymond asked. "I'm starting a scholarship at the Institute, so another child gets the chance I had." The circle was complete and beginning anew, endless as music itself. That night, Raymond came home to find Marissa waiting with hot tea. "How was it?" "Magical. Seeing Sophie today." "Marissa, every hard moment was worth it." "You changed the world, Raymond. One chord at a time. We changed it. All of us. Music just showed the way." He picked up his father's old harmonica, the one that had journeyed with him all these years. The metal was more worn, marked by time and use, but it still sang. He sat on the porch under New York City stars, struggling to shine through the pollution. And he played, not for anyone in particular, not hidden, not afraid, just playing because the music asked to be played. Marissa joined him, resting her head on his shoulder. From a neighboring apartment, someone opened a window to listen better. Somewhere in the city, Harold was likely doing the same, practicing that week's lessons. The music floated through the night, carrying stories of resilience, friendship, and hope. Stories of a doorman who dared to dream and a businessman who dared to change. Stories of children who found wings where others saw only bars. And in some basement, in some forgotten corner of the city or the country, maybe someone picked up an instrument for the first time, inspired by the courage to keep music alive. Because that's what Raymond had learned and taught. Music always finds a way, sometimes through the unlikeliest places, the most unexpected people, but it always finds one, and when it does, it changes everything. The end. Did you enjoy discovering how music can unite such different people? Let us know in the comments where you're watching from, and if you've ever held a dream close to your heart. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more heartwarming stories like this one. Until next time.